Ladies and gentlemen, every man, no matter how confident he seems, will put you through a test before he ever decides to commit. And here's the truth. It's not a test of your looks, your charm, or even how much you love him. It's a test of something far more powerful. He wants to know if your value depends on his attention, or if you can stand strong even when he pulls away. This one moment, how you respond when he creates distance, is the silent decision point that makes him either run or decide you're the woman he never wants to lose. There comes a moment in every connection where things start to feel different. You've shared the laughter, the attraction, the energy, and there's undeniable chemistry. But then something shifts. Suddenly, you notice he's pulling back or testing the waters in ways he didn't before. And if you're not prepared for it, it can feel confusing, even unsettling. But here's what you need to know. Before a man truly commits, there is always a test. It's not a conscious checklist he's running in his head. It's not a cruel game he plays. It's something deeper. It's instinctual. It's the way he makes sense of whether the connection you share is strong enough to last a lifetime, or whether it's just a fleeting spark. And that test is not about whether you're attractive enough, fun enough, or interesting enough. It's not about whether you can keep his attention or make him laugh. Those things may have drawn him in, but what keeps him there goes far beyond the surface. The test every man gives, whether he knows it or not, is about your ability to hold your own when he pulls away, when he challenges your boundaries, and when he reveals the imperfect sides of himself. And see, in the beginning, it's easy to be swept up by the magic of connection. When he's leaning in, giving you attention, making you feel like you're the only person in the world, everything feels effortless. But eventually, he wants to know something else. Can you handle the times when he's not perfect? Can you handle the moments when he doubts himself, when he's inconsistent, or when he's not showing up in the ways you hoped? And this is the test. He wants to know if your value is dependent on his behavior, or if your value stands no matter what. He wants to know if, when he pulls away slightly, you crumble and chase, or whether you stand firm in your self-respect. He wants to see whether your boundaries remain intact even when your emotions are tested. And make no mistake, those boundaries are what separate the women men respect and commit to from the ones they enjoy but never choose. And imagine this, he becomes a little distant. Maybe he doesn't text as quickly. Maybe he cancels a plan last minute. Maybe he starts acting distracted. Your instinct might be to panic, to overthink, to try to pull him back with more effort. But the truth is, this is the exact moment he's unconsciously testing something bigger. He's seeing if your happiness depends entirely on him, or if you have a life, a strength, and a sense of worth that runs deeper. And when a man feels that your world falls apart the second he creates distance, he starts to believe that what you want is not him, but the validation he gives. And that's when his attraction begins to fade, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't want the weight of being your only source of confidence or happiness. On the other hand, when he sees that you can hold space for yourself, that you're capable of continuing to thrive, to smile, to live fully even when he's not at his best, he feels something rare. He feels trust, he feels admiration, and that is what moves him closer to real commitment. And the test also shows up when he pushes boundaries. Maybe he makes a joke that crosses a line. Maybe he tests how far he can go without putting in effort. Maybe he tries to see if you'll accept behavior that doesn't sit right with you. These moments are not about cruelty. They're about clarity. Every man, whether he admits it or not, wants to know if you are someone who knows her worth. Because deep down, a man cannot trust what he does not respect, and respect is born the moment you show that you will not accept less than what you deserve. And it's not about being harsh. It's not about punishing him or withdrawing love. It's about calmly and clearly showing where your standards lie. A man feels magnetically drawn to a woman whose love is powerful but not desperate, whose affection is abundant but never at the cost of her dignity. He feels safe with her because he knows her strength isn't fragile, that her love doesn't mean self-abandonment. And this test is not passed through words alone. Anyone can say, "I know my worth." Anyone can say, "I won't settle." But the true test is passed in actions, in how you respond when he gives you less, when he delays, when he pushes. Do you bend and compromise who you are for the sake of keeping him close? Or do you stand tall, knowing that the right man won't run from your strength, but will rise to meet it? And this is the heart of the test. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for strength. He's not testing whether you can keep him entertained, but whether you can keep yourself whole in the face of his imperfections. Because here's the truth every man feels but rarely says. Commitment is not about the high points. It's about who you are in the low points. When he knows that you can weather those storms without losing yourself, he feels a deep sense of security. He feels that being with you isn't just about passion and fun. It's about partnership. And when he sees that, everything changes. He stops running. He stops questioning. He stops playing small games. Because he realizes that he doesn't have to be perfect to be loved, but he also realizes that he must keep showing up because you won't settle for anything less. That balance, your ability to love without losing yourself, is the very thing that passes his test. And so understand this, when he pulls back, when he hesitates, when he challenges you, it's not always the end. More often than not, it's the moment that defines the future. It's the moment that shows him what you're really made of. If you can respond not with fear, but with strength, not with chasing, but with calm assurance, you show him that you are not just someone to date, but someone to build a life with. And the test every man gives before he commits isn't about tricking you or hurting you. It's about finding out if your love is anchored in strength. And when he discovers that it is, he doesn't just want you in his life. He wants to make sure he never loses you. When he discovers this strength in you, it's like he's been given something he didn't even know he was searching for. He realizes he can finally exhale. Because up until that moment, part of him has always been watching closely, scanning, wondering if what he feels is real or if it's just temporary. And when he sees that you don't break under pressure, that your worth isn't negotiable, a switch flips in his mind. Suddenly, the fear that kept him holding back begins to dissolve, and you see, every man knows on some level that commitment requires responsibility. It means choosing someone fully, standing by them, being consistent, and no longer living with one foot in and one foot out. And because that responsibility is heavy, he will not step into it lightly. He wants to know that the person he commits to won't make that responsibility feel like a burden, but like a partnership. That's why the test matters so much. It's the proof he needs that when life gets messy, you won't lose yourself, and therefore he won't lose himself either. And think of it like this. If a man feels that every dip in his attention will cause chaos, he begins to retreat. If he believes that your happiness depends solely on whether he's showing up perfectly every day, he panics. But if he sees that you have a foundation so solid that his inconsistency doesn't shake it, he starts to lean in more, not less. Because suddenly he feels like he has space to be human. He feels like he can stumble, and instead of being punished for it, he'll be held accountable with love, with clarity, with strength. And accountability is one of the most attractive things to a man who's ready to commit. He doesn't want someone who overlooks everything just to keep him happy. He doesn't want someone who ignores red flags in the name of love. He wants someone who will call him out not in anger, but with grace. Someone who shows him that love without standards isn't love at all, it's fear, and fear never inspires commitment. It only creates temporary connection, and the test shows up in subtle ways too. He might ask for space. He might challenge you with his silence. He might question whether you're truly on the same page, and in those moments, the way you respond writes the story of whether this connection has a future. If your response is to panic, to chase, to beg for reassurance, he starts to believe that your desire for him comes from a place of emptiness. But if your response is calm confidence, if you continue to live your life, to smile, to grow, to enjoy yourself, he begins to see that you want him not because you need him, but because you choose him, and choice is infinitely more powerful than need, and every man craves the feeling of being chosen. He doesn't want to be someone's survival plan. He wants to be someone's desire. And when you stand strong in yourself, when you show him that your joy and peace are intact, whether he is leaning in or pulling back, you give him that gift. You show him that he's not filling a void, he's adding to a life that is already full, and that is irresistible. And it's important to understand that these tests aren't about perfection on your side either. You don't have to respond flawlessly to every moment. You don't have to be some unshakable fortress who never feels emotion or never has doubts. What matters is your ability to return to your strength, to breathe when you feel fear rising, to step back instead of chasing, to remind yourself of your value when everything inside you wants to abandon it. That resilience is what speaks louder than anything you could ever say. And here's something few people realize. The way you handle these moments doesn't just affect him, it transforms you. When you choose not to chase, when you choose not to overextend yourself, when you choose to hold your boundaries even when it feels terrifying, you are building a muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life, because you are proving to yourself over and over that your worth is not up for negotiation. You're proving that you don't need someone else's validation to feel whole, and once you've tasted that kind of strength, you never go back. And now think about the men who don't commit, the ones who drift in and out, the ones who keep you guessing. More often than not, what they are revealing is that they don't pass their own test. They're not ready to rise to the level of strength you're showing. And that's okay, because the moment you recognize that, you realize it's not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their readiness. And in holding your ground, you create space for the right man, the one who sees your strength and feels inspired to meet it with his own. And what's incredible is that when a man does recognize that strength, when he sees you've passed the test, he doesn't just commit to you in words. His entire energy changes. He stops hesitating. He starts planning. He starts thinking about the future, not just the moment. He begins to act in ways that show consistency, reliability, and devotion, because he now feels safe. Safe not just with your love, but with your strength. Safe in knowing that he doesn't have to carry the entire relationship alone, because you are a partner who can stand firm when things get hard. And here's the beauty of it. Commitment becomes less about obligation and more about desire. He doesn't commit because he feels pressured. He commits because he sees that losing you would mean losing something extraordinary, someone who embodies both love and strength. Someone who doesn't just follow where he leads but walks beside him. And this is why the test matters so deeply. Without realizing it, men are searching for someone who can be both nurturing and unwavering, loving yet strong. They want to feel passion, yes, but they also want to feel stability. They want to know that when life throws challenges their way, the relationship won't crumble under pressure. And when they see that you can be both soft and strong, both compassionate and boundaried, they recognize that you are rare. And think about how different this is from the fleeting connections people settle for. In those connections, everything feels intense in the beginning, but the moment reality hits, when someone pulls back, when someone falters, it all falls apart. Why? Because there was no foundation. But the test ensures there is a foundation. It ensures that what you're building isn't just excitement, but something lasting. And here's the part that many miss. When you pass the test, you're not just proving yourself to him, you're revealing him to himself. You're showing him what kind of man he wants to be. Because when a man sees that you live by high standards, it forces him to ask whether he is living by his own. When he feels your strength, it inspires him to rise, to match you, to become someone who is worthy of the partnership he's been given. That inspiration doesn't come from pressure, it comes from admiration. He doesn't feel like he's being forced into commitment. He feels like he's stepping into something he truly desires, because he knows he has found someone extraordinary. And the test every man gives before he commits is not a trap. It's an opportunity for him to see your strength, and an opportunity for you to embody it. It's the moment where attraction turns into respect, and respect turns into devotion. And when that devotion takes root, everything changes. Because now you are not just two people enjoying each other's company. You are two people choosing to build something real, something lasting, something that cannot be shaken by distance, silence, or fear. When two people arrive at this stage, something powerful begins to unfold. The surface-level attraction, the excitement of newness, starts to deepen into a bond that feels unshakable. But here's what most don't realize: that depth is not created in the easy moments. It's created in the moments when the test shows up again and again in subtle, almost invisible ways. Because the truth is, this test isn't a single event, it's a pattern. A man will, consciously or unconsciously, keep checking whether the strength he saw in you is real, whether it's consistent, whether it endures over time. And the more he sees that it does, the more his walls come down. And imagine a man who has spent years building his life, carrying his own insecurities, and protecting his heart. He's had experiences where he's seen people lose themselves in relationships, where love became control, or where attraction turned into expectation. Deep down, he fears giving himself fully, only to feel trapped, misunderstood, or suffocated. So when he meets someone who loves fiercely yet never loses their balance, he feels something almost unfamiliar. He feels relief. He feels freedom. He feels that for the first time, love might not mean losing himself. It might mean becoming more of himself. And that feeling doesn't just make him want to stay. It makes him want to commit fully. Because commitment for a man isn't about being locked down. It's about feeling lifted up. It's about realizing that choosing one person doesn't limit his world, it expands it. And that realization happens only when he sees that love with you doesn't cost him his sense of self, it enhances it. That's what the test reveals. And think about the moments when he's at his weakest, when stress from work consumes him, when he feels like he's not enough, when he's wrestling with doubts or fears he doesn't even want to admit. In those moments, the way you hold yourself becomes everything. If you crumble with him, if you panic because he's distant, he starts to feel pressure to fix both his own struggle and your reaction. But if you can hold steady, if you can stay rooted in your worth while offering understanding, he begins to feel something rare, that he's not alone, and yet he's not responsible for your entire emotional world. That balance is what makes him see a future, and the same applies when he pushes. Sometimes he'll test by withdrawing, but other times he'll test by leaning in too far, seeing how much you're willing to tolerate. Maybe he'll cross a boundary with words, maybe he'll take your kindness for granted, maybe he'll show up late and expect it to be okay. He doesn't always do this intentionally. It's often unconscious, but your response in those moments shapes everything. If you smile and swallow your discomfort, hoping not to lose him, he learns that your standards bend. But if you calmly, firmly, lovingly show him that you won't accept disrespect, he feels something shift. He doesn't lose attraction, he gains respect. He starts to admire you not only for what you give, but for what you refuse to give up, your dignity. And respect is magnetic. It's the foundation on which lasting love is built. And here's the paradox. Many fear that holding their ground will push someone away. But for the right man, it does the opposite. It draws him closer. Because deep down, he knows that if you can stand strong with him, you'll also stand strong beside him in life. You won't collapse when the world gets heavy. You won't lose yourself in the storms. And that knowledge makes him want to build with you because he knows he can trust you, not just with his love, but with his future. And this test also plays out in how you treat yourself when he's not watching. A man pays attention, even if he doesn't always comment. He notices whether you keep pursuing your passions, whether you nurture your friendships, whether you care for your body and your spirit. These things matter because they signal something deeper, that your sense of self is not dependent on him. And when he sees that, he feels both admiration and attraction, because it tells him that you are complete and that being with him is a choice, not a crutch. And choice is powerful. A man can sense when he's with someone who has chosen him because of true alignment, rather than someone who's clinging out of fear of being alone. And when he feels chosen, his own desire to choose deepens. He begins to think in terms of us instead of just me. He starts to see partnership as a place where both people grow, not shrink. And that shift is what leads him to commit with his whole heart. And the test isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about whether you can embody the same strength and value in the highs and the lows. Anyone can radiate confidence when things are going well. But what about when he cancels plans or goes quiet or doesn't meet your expectations? What about when fear tempts you to chase, to plead, to prove yourself? The way you handle those exact moments is what he remembers most. Because those are the moments that reveal whether this connection is built on dependency or on true partnership. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop chasing, when you stop proving, when you stop bending your standards, you don't lose him. You reveal him. Because the man who is truly ready will step forward. He will rise to the standard you set. He will show you that he can meet your strength with his own. And the man who isn't ready will drift. Not because you failed, but because he wasn't equipped to match the level of love and strength you bring. And there's freedom in that, because suddenly you're no longer trying to convince someone to choose you. You're letting their actions reveal the truth. You're letting the test do its work. And the result is clarity. The right man will recognize your worth and commit, while the wrong man will eliminate himself. Either way, you win because you never lose yourself in the process. And what makes this test so profound is that it's not just about him. It's about you living in alignment with who you truly are. When you hold your ground, when you protect your standards, when you choose to remain whole no matter what, you create a life that feels fulfilling with or without a partner. And ironically, it's that very wholeness that makes the right partner want to stay. Because he knows he's not your everything, he's your addition. He's not filling an empty space, he's joining an already beautiful story. And when he realizes that, he feels something he rarely feels in this world: gratitude. Gratitude that he has found someone who can love without losing themselves, who can stand firm without closing off, who can offer affection without making it conditional. That gratitude is what transforms his attraction into devotion. It's what makes him look at you and think, I don't just want this now, I want this forever. And here's what's extraordinary. Once he passes through that test and sees that your strength is real, he begins to let down his own guard. He no longer feels the need to test, to pull away, to push. He starts to show up consistently because he knows he's safe. He knows that he doesn't have to be perfect, but he also knows he can't be careless because he's with someone who inspires him to give his best, not through pressure, but through presence. And the test every man gives before he commits isn't about creating distance for the sake of it. It's about revealing whether the bond is strong enough to last beyond the honeymoon phase, beyond the fun, beyond the surface. And when that bond is proven, it becomes unbreakable. Because now he knows that what you share is not built on fleeting attraction, but on the kind of strength, respect, and love that only grows with time. When a man reaches the point where he no longer feels the need to keep testing, something remarkable happens inside of him. His guard lowers in ways you may have never seen before. The walls he once kept around his emotions, the hesitation he carried about being vulnerable, begin to melt. Because now he feels certain that he's not with someone who will punish his flaws or abandon her own identity to keep him close. He feels certain that this connection has both passion and stability, and that combination is what makes him feel safe enough to give himself fully. But this shift doesn't happen instantly. Even after the test feels like it has been passed, there are still layers of fear he may work through. And it's in these layers that you'll see the most meaningful transformation. A man who once pulled away when things got intense begins to lean in when those same feelings arise. A man who once hesitated to talk about his future begins to share his vision openly. A man who once treated commitment like a risk begins to see it as the greatest investment he could ever make. And all of this comes from the steady foundation you've shown him through your strength. And there's something deeply attractive to a man about consistency. Not perfection, but consistency. When you continue to show up in your own life, when you continue to embody the same energy, whether he's giving his all or holding back, he feels secure. He doesn't wonder if your love will vanish when he struggles, and he doesn't fear being smothered when he needs a moment of space. What he feels instead is balance, the rare balance of someone who can love deeply but doesn't lose themselves in the process. That balance is what gives him confidence that a lifelong commitment with you won't mean chaos but peace. And this peace doesn't mean life will be free of conflict or challenge. On the contrary, challenges are inevitable. But what changes is how those challenges are handled. When you demonstrate that you don't collapse under the weight of his tests, you also demonstrate how the two of you might face future trials together. He sees that instead of turning panic into drama, you turn uncertainty into an opportunity for growth. He sees that instead of using love as leverage, you use it as an anchor. And that makes him want to step into the role of a true partner. Because he knows he can build a life with someone who brings strength, not instability. And think about the way the world works. Every person is tested by life itself through setbacks, disappointments, and moments of doubt. And in relationships, those same dynamics play out. The difference is that in love, those tests feel even more personal, even more intense, because they touch the deepest parts of who we are. For a man, the test he gives before committing is really a mirror of his own insecurities. It's his way of asking, can I trust this? Can I trust myself with her? Can I trust that if I give everything, it won't destroy me? And when he sees that your love is both steady and strong, those questions begin to quiet. And what follows is the kind of devotion that doesn't just speak in promises, but in actions. You'll notice that his effort becomes more consistent. He starts to prioritize your time, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wants to. He starts to listen more closely because your opinions matter to him. He begins to include you in his decisions, not because he feels he has to, but because he values your perspective. This is what real commitment looks like, not grand declarations that fade, but the quiet, everyday choices that show he has decided to build with you. And what's even more powerful is that when a man commits from this place, he doesn't see it as giving up freedom. He sees it as gaining it. Because freedom isn't about being able to walk away at any time. It's about being able to stand firmly in something that feels true. When he chooses you, he feels free in a new way, free from the endless search for someone who understands him, free from the anxiety of wondering if love will hold, free from the fear that giving his heart will lead to regret. That freedom comes not because you forced him into commitment, but because you inspired him into it. And there's another layer to this that often goes unspoken. Men crave admiration just as much as love. They want to feel respected, valued, seen as capable, but admiration means little if it isn't balanced by accountability. If you admire him but never hold him accountable, he won't grow. If you hold him accountable but never show admiration, he won't feel loved. But when you do both, when you see his strength while expecting him to live up to it, you awaken something in him. You awaken his desire to not only stay, but to rise, and that rise is where his fullest commitment lies. And the test he gives before committing is really about this. Can you admire me without idolizing me? Can you hold me accountable without diminishing me? Can you love me without losing yourself? If the answer is yes, then he feels safe to give everything, because he knows he's stepping into a partnership where both people can grow, where both people can be human, where both people can thrive. And as time goes on, the rewards of passing this test become clearer. You'll notice that he doesn't just invest in the relationship, he invests in himself. He starts to become more consistent not because you demanded it, but because being with you makes him want to rise higher. He starts to dream bigger because he sees the kind of life you could build together. He starts to show up with more patience, more presence, more devotion, because he doesn't want to risk losing something so rare. And you, in turn, feel the difference. You feel the shift from wondering where you stand to knowing you are chosen. You feel the shift from chasing his attention to receiving his consistency. You feel the shift from hoping for commitment to living in it. That's the transformation the test creates not just in him, but in the relationship itself. And it's also important to recognize that this test isn't about games. It's not manipulation. It's not about keeping him guessing or withholding love. It's about embodying strength that is genuine, strength that comes from a deep sense of self-worth. Because if the strength isn't real, it won't last. Pretending to be confident, pretending to have boundaries, pretending to be unshaken only works temporarily. But when your strength is real, when it's rooted in knowing your value, that's when it changes everything. And that's why this isn't just his test, it's yours too. Every time he pulls back, every time he challenges, every time he tests, you are given the opportunity to choose yourself again. You are given the opportunity to prove to yourself that you don't need to abandon your standards to be loved. And each time you pass that test, you grow stronger, more confident, more magnetic, which means that whether he commits or not, you are always winning. And the irony is that by standing firm, by not chasing, by refusing to lose yourself, you actually inspire the very commitment so many chase after. Because a man doesn't want to commit to someone who collapses under pressure. He wants to commit to someone who shows him that together you can face anything. And when he sees that, he realizes the test has been answered, not through words, but through actions. Not through promises, but through presence. And it's that realization that moves him from hesitation to devotion, from fear to certainty, from interest to commitment.